Hi folks, I am Karan Mehta. I am having total 9+ years of experience in IT industry, and at my current role I am working as a staff engineer at Entity Services. So today we'll be talking about the cloud computing and DevOps world and one of the public cloud which is highly popular and spread across the market. So what is cloud computing? So cloud computing is an on-demand availability of services. Services means it can be servers, storage, network, or the internet. So the services which is available logically or virtually over the internet. So that is we can say will call as cloud computing. Cloud computing has divided into segments. So it comes as in infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and lastly software as a service. So infrastructure as a service means the servers. If we talk about AWS, then we have EC2, S3, VPC, etc., etc. So these are few services that comes under infrastructure as a service. PaaS. So PaaS is another growth, we can say, in the cloud computing world when we integrating more services in the software side, and we can say uh, the DevOps part. So Azure DevOps, and in that code pipeline, code build, etc. So these are the few services which comes under PaaS. So the last is SaaS, software as a service. So that is purely software oriented service, like we have Zoom, Google Workspace, etc., etc. So these are few examples of these services which we will be discussing day by day, and so that is we can say cloud computing. What is DevOps? Or we can say what is DevOps world? So DevOps is it's integration of multiple tools to get the continuation services without any human intervene or without any interruption. So that is called DevOps. So we have CI/CD models, continuous integration, continuous delivery models. Like if we talk about AWS, the native CI/CD integration tool is code build, code pipeline, code deploy. So, but we have open source services as well: Jenkins, Travis CI, Circle CI, and many more. So this is all about DevOps. Moving ahead to the public cloud, who is having the largest market cap? So it's AWS, Amazon Web Services. So Amazon Web Services is a public cloud which provide these services which provide these services to the mid-scale, small-scale companies or vendors, whosoever requires to create their infrastructure and they want to start their organization, or and they want to deploy any application. So we can utilize these services and we can deploy our applications. Why cloud is so popular in such a short duration? Because for cloud we don't require any physical infrastructure. We Whatever we are using we need to pay only for that. So the pay as per you the use as per pay model. So that is greatly benefited to all the application deployers, whosoever deploy the applications, and to run the application and their engines on top of the computation, storage, network, and many more services which we will be discussing. So, talking about the first service of Amazon is EC2, that is Elastic Cloud Compute. So, it's a computation service, we can say, instance or servers on which we can run the application, we can deploy our application. EC2 is coming in various purchasing models. So the first one is on demand model. The next is spot instances. Then we have reserved instances, and we also have dedicated instances. So on-demand instances are the ones, suppose a client will come to you and client will say, I need an M4 instance or M6 instance for large memory. So you can deploy at that time and run the instance, but it is not so cost effective as compared to these instances, reserved instances. Spot instances are the instances for which the auction, the bidding is there. We need to get this instance by win that bid, and we can utilize in our AWS premises. Reserved instances are the ones we need to reserve that instance for months or for few months or years. It depends how longer the project is, so it will be cost effective as compared to the on-demand instance or spot instance. Dedicated instances are those instances, these all are the purchasing models. So cloud is all about how we'll cut short the cost, and how much we will use, that much we need to pay. And dedicated instances are the instances that is dedicated to the specific host, the, we can say, the specific physical server on their, and on their data center premises. So that is called dedicated instances. So these are some tenancy policies. We can say we will have multiple or shared tenancy policies. So that we will discuss later. And if we're talking about the compute, then this next part is the network. So that is VPC, virtual private network. So that is a virtual private network service from AWS that provides an isolation among the instances, and it's a virtual logical. It creates a virtual logical network that has a different CIDR range, and we will segment this in our AWS environment. VPC comprises of many components. So the very first component is subnets. Then we'll have AZs, availability zones, then security groups, ACLs, route internet gateway, and lastly we have route tables. So subnets. Before subnets, I'll be talking about regions. Yes. So each VPC will be created in the region. So AWS is having multiple regions. So if we talk about India, so we have a Mumbai region. Suppose So Mumbai data center. So in India, they might have created others as well, might be in Chennai or somewhere. But what I remember is Mumbai. They have deployed the first in India. So regions, so everything which EC2, VPC, all the services will be deployed in regions. So, and under regions we have subnets, so we can have multiple regions, and under one region we will be having multiple AZs, that is called availability zones. So suppose for one region we have two three availability zones. So I will just give you an example of North Virginia, where we have the most popular services deployed, or all the most of the services being deployed in North Virginia. So that's why I took an example of North Virginia. So we generally call this as US East 1. So when we talk about AZs, it will be coming as US East 1A, US East 1B, US East 1C. So it will be coming like that. So it will coming like that. So availability zones is we are using to avoid to avoid the data lose. We need to recover the data. If we will have multiple availability zones, we can utilize when we can recover from the different availability zones if any disaster recovery or any mishappening happened to one of the data center or one of the availability zones. So for fault tolerance, so we are using availability zones. Subnets. So subnets comes under the network segment which we were discussing, VPC. So VPC, virtual private network, contains subnets. So under subnets we do have CIDR ranges which we need to provide for our instances. So we will have IPs, which we will get from this range. CAD range we will be getting in the terms of, suppose I'm just giving an example, 10.0.0.0 slash 16. So that this is one of the example, or you can say slash 24. So accordingly, so whatever the client ask, or in which network we need to create our instances, so we will deploy in CIDR range that comes under the subnets. So subnets comprises of two types, we can say. So one is public subnet and private subnet. That public subnet, when we call something comes, any resource is deployed under public subnet, that means it has an internet connectivity, so that can talk to internet. Whereas private subnets won't allow to talk over the world, so there will be no internet service under private subnets. And how this internet come in public subnets? From this internet gateway. So we're discussing about this as well. Security groups. So these are the virtual firewalls that is directly attached to the EC2 instance, that is attached to the instance, to provide security and to provide access so that nobody can enter in your environment or in your EC2 instance. We do have a IP address or CADR range with a port assigned. Then only a computer client or function or person can reach to the EC2 instance. So that is a, we can say, the virtual firewall. And ACL plays the same role how security group works. The only difference is this will apply on the subnets rather than EC2 instance. ACL will apply on subnets, and it will also protect the environment from any human intervention. Internet gateway, so that is another service of VPC that provides internet access to the EC2 instances. We can have in, if suppose we need to download, if suppose we are running some Linux instance and we need to run the update manager, or we need to run some, we need to deploy some package directly, we need to download any package directly from the internet. So we can attach this internet gateway directly to the instance, and we will have connectivity directly. We cannot attach internet gateway to the instance. We, for that we do require route tables, and route tables we do have association of subnets. We do require association of subnets. uh, like suppose we need to attach internet gateway in route tables, and that will connect to the subnet, public subnet, and the instances which comes under the public subnet will have access to the internet world, or we can say the outside world. We'll be discussing this further more on the demo when we'll be doing it, but as of now this is we can say the theory, what you guys need to remember. Talking about the next service, the another important service of AWS is S3. It's a simple storage service. So S3, uh, whatever the things is in our environment, we need to save that. So we will be saving in S3. So in JSON, structured or unstructured. So any unstructured data we can save here in S3, either it will be JSON format or YAML format, or any other video streaming. So we can save in S3 and we can retrieve from S3. S3 have their own life cycle policies. That is, first is standard S3, then standard, infrequently accessed, then we have glaciers, and many more. In glaciers level, they have subcategories. So standard S3, this is the best model of retrieving the, we can't say best model, but when if we want to retrieve the data in less latency, and we need to save in S3, so that is the model we need to follow. But if you want to save the cost, since we are talking about cloud, so cost again is a major, plays a major role. So if we might require data sometimes, and we so if it's we have couple of, after couple of days we need to retrieve the data, and it's not so so frequently it's accessed, then we can go for this tier, another standard infrequently accessed. And lastly, glaciers. So glaciers are the one who are the cheapest in terms of securing the data, and it is having more latency, so the retrieval of data will take more time, or we can say it will be more latent. So as per the policies, we can save our data as per the retrieving policies, how much throughput we want, how much uh, storage it's required, so we can save here. Moving ahead, we will talk about now EBS volumes. So this is another block storage. So S3 is an objects oriented storage where we can save immense data at and without any uh, interruption. So we can upload it and we can get it. So another volume, we can say the EBS volume, elastic block store. It's a block, it's as it is defining from its name, it's a block storage, and we can mount that storage with EC2, and we can encrypt that as well for encryption purpose, and we can take cloning, snapshot, any image from this we can create. So that is a storage which is attached to the attach or de-associate with the, we can detach as well, and we can attach to some other instance as well. So we will see further how we can utilize this service, EBS volumes. We can take snapshots, cloning, backup of images, and the most important is we need to mount this. This coming with the instance as a mounting. Okay, moving forward, the most one of the most important service of AWS to provide access. So it is IAM, identity and access management. So this is a service where users, roles, groups, policies, majorly these, so far I have created in my experience. So we need to provide access to the user. Suppose there are developers from application team, there are developers from QA testing team, and you are a DevOps guy, so you must be having the administrative privileges, but we cannot provide this access to each and every team member of different team members. So suppose the QA or testing team, they will just want to test this, or they just want to have a brief of it. So we can provide the read-only access to any service, to S3, to any other services, where we need to provide access read-only, or we can customize this as a customer managed policy. So suppose client will come to you and client will say, I need to look at the AWS console. I need after each sprint I need to see how you have worked on each service. I need to go through the services which so far I have worked in, suppose 2 months or 3 months. So we need to provide the access to the client, and we can provide read only access, or we can customize the access. So at that time, this IAM plays an important role. When we talk about production, QA, or test environment, at that time also roles. So with each roles we can attach policies. So we can create roles for the services, and with respect to the services, whatever the policies is required, so we need to attach that, and we can use those. So we will see this uh, in the demo. Okay, talking about the next service called AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda. So it's a serverless model, it's a serverless architecture where we are utilizing the resource for a few seconds or a few minutes, and it will be turned off. So it's a suppose we need some automation script. We need our EC2 instance should be powered on Monday and turned off on Friday, and for the rest 2 days we don't want any interruption. We don't want any uh, sources to be utilized to optimize the cost. At that time we can use Lambda. So this is a, we can say this is a beautiful automation service where we can we will be optimizing our code, and whatever the automation tasks we can run, so we can go through AWS Lambda service. It's a serverless function, we can say, runs automation. Here we, if a person is good in, suppose if a person is coming from the developer background, either from Python, Java, Node.js, any platform, so we can write a script and we can run that automation. So multiple tech platform. For Python, it's there an SDK called Boto 3. So with that, we can extract all the services of AWS. Another service we will talking about is AWS CloudWatch. So that is another premium service that is used for monitoring and uh, real-time monitoring, we can say, in our environment to watch the infrastructure, to watch the AWS services. So we can use CloudWatch service. It's a native real-time moni- monitoring solution. Here we can create rules and metrics, so we can monitor our environment with this service. CloudWatch, it's a native AWS real-time monitoring service where suppose our CPU spikes too much, and we can set the threshold in the CloudWatch, and suppose if it crosses 70% or if it crosses 75%, and at that time we can monitor that service and we can see which service is taking more. Another beautiful we can just monitor how much CPU consumption is being taken. Another beautiful we can say monitoring service called Cloud Trail. So that is for API. Basically, it monitors the API, the application monitoring, we can say, and the API monitoring activity in AWS account. So we will be discussing this further when we'll be deploying demo. Okay, what else? Okay, moving toward the past services, we can say the CI/CD services, code, code pipeline, code commit, code build, code deploy. So code pipeline, code. So these are the native CI/CD, the integration, continuous integration and continuous delivery services of AWS, where we can deploy our pipeline. We can have the source code in our code commit repos. So another is code commit. We can have the source code here, like you must be heard about Git. So that is a SVM. So the same thing where code commit does here, and in a larger extent. So we can have our code saved here, and we can uh, the source code repo will be there, and we can check out for the pipeline. And pipeline will be having different stages, and this and code build where the exact execution happen. We need to set whether the cloud formation, the SAM templates we are using. So uh, we need to run the build stages here, if installation, uh, what we need to do at the time of deployment, and finally, so we need to write the code for deployment is here. And code deploy is for if we're deploying the application on EC2 instance or any serverless medium like Docker or any Kubernetes. So for EC2 we are using code deploy. So whenever we are deploying the application or the pipeline, so that is the service we need to consider for deployment. So this is just an overview of these services, how it is being utilized, And if you're not using any outside service, suppose client will come to you and client will say we have only AWS, and we are not using any outside services, we are not using any service which is not from the AWS, so we at that time we can deploy this. Okay, moving ahead, the ECS and EKS. ECS is Elastic Containerization Service and Elastic Kubernetes Service. So Elastic Containerization Service is an self-built, we can say, service of AWS, and it will secure the Docker. I mean, any images. So it is where we can secure the repos and images here. So whenever we are deploying through these stacks, so we need to deploy. We need to pass on the images which we'll pick from ECS, Elastic Container. So it's a container platform service. We can say like we have for a famous tool outside from AWS is a Docker. So the same platform ECS does, how the Docker is deploying the image. So the same thing, the containerization vault. And EKS, the Elastic Kubernetes Service. So that's an orchestration of containerization. So Kubernetes on the in the on-premise world. So Kubernetes is deploying from ADM, but here it's a managed AWS managed service where we will be taking care only of the managed nodes, and the control plane will be taken care by AWS team. So just a brief about it. Managed service. Yeah, I guess that's it for today. So we will be covering other services in the next session. And till then, if you have any doubts, do let me know. You have my LinkedIn over my email or any other medium, so we can connect and we can resolve the solutions. We will be deploying the application soon in a lab and environment where I'll be demoing you each and every service and how it is being utilized. Okay, thank you. Take care.